Welcome back. I have as a guest today one of my favorite people in the world. His name is Richard Maraj. He is a minister at Unity of Phoenix, has been there for 15 years. Before that was in Kansas City at Unity Kansas City North, or North Kansas City, for about 5 years. And then before that, started as a minister in North Carolina, in Raleigh, I believe, wasn't it?
It was Raleigh?
Raleigh, yeah. Among all the reasons I would want Richard Maraj as a guest, one of the reasons is that if you don't know him and you can't see him right now, his entire body, Richard, are you in a wheelchair right now?
Currently, yes.
Yes. Richard is in a wheelchair. When I met Richard, he was on crutches, and he will be on crutches again, I imagine, soon. But Richard, you were in an accident when you were how old?
It was the day after I graduated from high school, officially. It was on Canada Day, actually, that I was in that automobile accident.
On Canada Day.
Yeah.
And what was the result of the accident for your body?
I was paralyzed. It was an L3 spinal cord injury. Okay. And so I spent 6 months in a rehab hospital and told I'd never walk again. And it was a tough life change because I actually was just not just finishing high school, but I was a high jump champion, co-captain of my high school basketball team. I mean, we went to the provincial finals in volleyball.
You were a high jump champion?
Yeah.
Is that the one you run towards something and jump over it, or?
Yes. Yeah. When you run towards it and you jump over it.
Right? No pole.
No pole, just yourself. And you get over. The first time I jumped over my own height at 6 feet was like the greatest thing ever. I thought to get my body over my own height was incredible. I wasn't going to go to the Olympics or anything, but it was a really cool experience to see yourself and to experience jumping higher than your own height.
I don't actually have a comprehension of how to do that. I mean, I'm 7'8". And I can't imagine. You run towards the bar, right?
You run towards the bar and not off of one leg, and you lift your knee up high, and then you lean back and get your body over the bar. It was probably one of the coolest feelings that I had as an athlete. Even though basketball and volleyball were my sports, high jumping and achieving going over my own height, I thought was one of the most fun things.
You remember the moment?
Yeah, I absolutely 100% remember it.
Okay, so you had just graduated high school. You were a fit, friendly, dare I say, dashingly handsome young man.
Let's say that. Yes, let's say that.
Absolutely. And then you spent 6 months in a rehab hospital. I mean, when you're in that hospital, are you getting lots of visitors? I mean, this must have been local news.
Yeah, thank goodness, I've got there are 10 kids in my family. And so between my mom, my dad, and my 9 siblings, I got more visitors than anyone ever had. In fact, we used to send some of them out to other patients because there were so many. I'm not kidding. My dad used to go and visit everybody on the floor. I have to say, I was so blessed, for as horrible an experience as that was, and being in a rehab hospital, being paralyzed and having your life change was horrible. One of the great blessings was I had not only friends, but especially family members visiting me every single day of that 6-month period. And and it really was hard not to feel loved and supported, even through the worst experience of my life.
Who do you think, or who were you aware of, was sadder or more hurt by it, you or your parents?
I think my parents were devastated for me, especially my dad. Mm-hmm. I think being the youngest male and, all the things, parents always have all kinds of expectations and hopes and dreams for their kids. So I would say, my dad was pretty devastated by it. I think my mom was devastated as well, but she was a lady of constant hope. That no matter what situation, she would believe it was going to get better.
That was just the way she was.
Yeah, that's just the way she was. And I got to say, the one thing I always, and even when it happened, I was glad it happened to me and not one of my siblings. I would have been devastated had it happened to one of them more than myself. So I was and I don't want to use the word glad, but I would have preferred it being me instead of one of them. And it's funny, 1 year later after the accident, my sisters, it was Canada Day, and my sisters made some margaritas.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'd had a drink, and a few of them were kind of sad. And I was like, no, there's really nothing to be sad about. I mean, yeah, it was horrible, but, you know, I could have died that day. So I kind of got a second chance. So I always celebrated on Canada Day, on the day of the accident, but then I also asked them after a margarita or two, what was it like for you guys? Because I knew my side, and I asked, well, I want to know what it was like for them. And they shared how difficult it was and devastating it was and how helpless they felt, you know, to know that I was injured and my life had changed so much. And so it was a really healing process for us to be able to share and understand everyone's perspective. Because one thing I realized, when traumas like that happen, they don't just happen to the person it happened to.
Right.
It happens to their family, their friends, you know, to all the people that are related, connected, and supportive of that individual. So it made me have an appreciation, even in those early days, that it happened to us. You know, there was a systemic impact, you know, on the joy of my family that felt depleted and deflated by that experience. And we all had to grow through it, you know, to find our joy, you know, collectively and individually again.
To find it again. What changed about your relationship with yourself and even the world? I mean, but from the day before to the day after or the year after, did you get angrier, sillier? Did you get sadder? Did you get more thoughtful? I mean, what do you think changed?
Well, initially I went from feeling like I was on top of the world to literally feel like my dad got me a job. I was working in the Hamilton Cemetery, mowing lawns. And back then in 1983 for like $13, and I mean, that's crazy. I mean, so it was a great summer job. I had a great girlfriend. I was going to play volleyball at the university. I mean, a lot of good things were happening. So, so it just felt like all the air got taken out of my sails. I mean, it just felt like my life was over. And so there was a lot of sadness, a lot of hopelessness, a lot of tears. You know, and as it went longer and longer and nothing improved, it got even worse. So it was quite devastating for a while. And then, you know, I tried to go to university the next year, and it was in the kinesiology program, which is a study of human movement. My brother's got his PhD in motor development. Right. And in fact, at the same university he got it from that I was trying to go to. And it was tough to be in a wheelchair at the time and see all these athletes that are usually kinesiology students, right? All the active ones, and we're in labs running on treadmills, testing VO2 max, and they're asking for volunteers, and nobody wants to volunteer, and I want to volunteer, and I can't. And so there was a lot of pain getting back into the world after the rehab hospital, see all the things I couldn't do. Mm-hmm. And then it was really, really, really devastating. And they said that I would not only not walk again, but I didn't have enough strength and ability and function to even walk on crutches. And so something interesting happened when I was at university. I used to see this guy on crutches swinging his legs and just motoring all over the campus. Right. And I'd always see him like far away. And so I could never really catch up with him. And so I ended up finding out what his name was and getting his phone number. And I ended up calling him because I was amazed at how he was moving on these crutches and moving so fast. Yeah. Because it looked like stilts to me. It looked scary, even though like everybody injured, you want to walk. And so I called him and I said, hey man, tell me about, well, he had polio. And I said, how'd you get on the crutches and you're not in a chair? He said, well, when it happened, his mom went to consult with a doctor and said, doctor, what's the best thing I could do for my son? And the doctor said to her, don't let him have a wheelchair, make him have crutches and force him to work, and he'll be better off in his longer life. Even if you were to use a wheelchair down the road, that you will do more good for him that way. So the mom got him crutches and braces, took his wheelchair away, and he had no choice. And I'll tell you, something in me stirred to see someone do something I didn't think I could do, but I was hoping I could. And to hear that story. So suddenly, for me, it was like, okay, no more wheelchair. I'm on these crutches. This is what I'm going to do. And so there was something, pardon me?
Remember that guy's name?
His name was Pano. I only talked to him once or maybe twice. I thanked him the second time. And he was from Mexico. And I'll tell you, what was amazing was, here was a decision a woman made in Mexico, like, 20 years prior to that.
Right.
And because she made that decision that impacted her son,
right.
I, 20 years later, saw him at college motoring across the campus on these crutches, and it inspired me that I could do that.
Phenomenal.
And I always think we are more connected and we inspire each other, and our decisions and actions make more of an impact than we even realize. That I will never meet that woman. I don't know anything about her except what she did for her son. I didn't even know his last name.
Right.
And yet those two people had a huge impact. Even that doctor had an impact on me and my life. And it was really the beginning of me believing that I could get on my feet and was willing to work that hard. And sitting was not an option. I mean,
sitting was not an option.
Yeah, and so it made me more driven. And even though I was kind of depressed at the time, it was the thing that gave me hope and a goal and something to work towards.
Can you recount some of the things that you have just decided you were not going to not do?
The first one was skydiving. And I did that in North Carolina when I was a minister there. In fact, just before I left, I went skydiving in North Carolina, and I took my mom, who was 75 at the time, on my second jump. I did the first jump, and then a little bit later,
your mom jumped out of a plane.
My mom at 75.
Jumped out.
So that was fun to share that experience with her. So that was great. Skiing on this mono ski. It was a really, really cool thing. I went to Breckenridge, Colorado. They have the National Handicap Skiing Association there. And so that was really, really cool to be able to do skydiving. I went aerobatic flying in a plane and doing all kinds of loopy things with a friend of mine, which was really cool. I went hang gliding. I mean, I've tried as many things as I could try. The things that scared me and I didn't believe I could do, but I absolutely just wanted to get out there and see what it would be like. Because one of the things is, like, when you got a situation, at least for me, I wanted to be normal. I didn't want things to stop me. And so even I would shoot free throws and play the game. 21 is just shooting free throws. I mean, I was pretty good at that. I shot like 92 out of 100 free throws in a shoot-a-thon thing. So that's pretty good. But even after my accident, I couldn't even bend my knees. I'd hold onto this tree about 12 feet from the basket and just keep shooting. And so it was great to be able to compete and be good at even just doing free throws again. So all the things that I didn't think I could do or seemed impossible or something that seemed it would be nice, I would always try and find a way to see if I could possibly do it. And of course, do it safely, but just doing it. And the more I did, I think the more adventurous I got.
You did horseback riding too.
Oh yeah, horseback riding. And to ride a horse without the power of your legs. I mean, I was so lucky to be on that horse. I mean, a couple of times it kind of went a little wild. And amazingly, I never fell off. That always shocked me. It's like God had to be like guiding me. And they even let me go by myself in the desert, because that was right here in Phoenix, being able to do that. And so some of those things were really fun. I look back now and thinking, man, I was crazy. I wouldn't do some of those things now, but I was glad I did them back then.
How do you think you've related to other people in wheelchairs and crutches and so on over your lifetime as a result? I mean, I don't mean it to be a softball question. I mean, really, how has that been for you?
I think it made me realize that everybody's got something that they're dealing with and working with in life, something that isn't easy, something that they struggle with, that they have to work hard with, whether it's physical or whether it's family or whether it's emotional or financial, I mean, or career-wise. No matter how pretty the picture looks, you know, people are dealing with stuff that everyone could use some encouragement. Everyone can use some appreciation or support. Everyone could use a smile. And so to realize that that's the default thing with all people that you meet, I think it really helped me a lot in that. And I've really been able to pay attention to the number, I mean, and there are countless numbers of people who have helped me and inspired me. People would become my role models, whether they realized it or not. I'd be like, wow, look at the way that person can lead a meeting, or look at the way that person has a certain talent or ability. It was always wonderful to see all these different skills and talents and abilities. I mean, you know, both of us are Michael Jordan fans. I mean, just watching him play, and to play with joy and to play with everything he had. I mean, from famous people, you know, to people in my family and friends, you know, they all, somehow I was able to see and feed off of the talents and abilities that people had. I didn't feel jealous. I felt in awe and inspired by people. So I knew people hurt, and also knew that we can inspire each other. And then the other thing I think it taught me is, wherever we are, there are still possibilities, and there's still challenges, and there's still joys and things that we can achieve that we didn't think we could. And it's within our own context. Like, you know, for me, you know, there were things within my world and my new physical reality that were challenges. And it doesn't mean I was going to climb a mountain, or I had to do all these things. It was whatever for me within my life that was a great achievement, or something that would make a huge difference. Because sometimes I think we want to compare ourselves only to Michael Jordan, or someone doing, you know, Mother Teresa, Paul McCartney, Nelson Mandela. And it's no, within our own sphere and world, that there are challenges, there are things to overcome, there are differences that we make, you know, and everybody's got that. You know, everybody makes that difference, and everyone's got those, you know, triumphant moments and mountaintop experiences to have in their world. You know, that's why I think that comparing, you know, is a real detriment we do to ourselves, because it's easy to not feel good real fast if you compare, you know, your singing to, you know, Beyonce or like you said, Paul McCartney or somebody. But it's to look at our own world and our own life and our own experience, and what's available to us and the people that we can touch, and seeing what's the best that I can do and what's calling me and driving me.
What did you do professionally before you went to ministerial school?
Pretty close to nothing, but
you lived at home?
Yes, I lived at home. And what I started doing was I started getting involved in volunteering. So I would volunteer at Goodwill Industries. I volunteered at the Canadian Institute for the Blind. When I started doing Toastmasters, I would do little Toastmaster workshops, stuff for the city council. I was considering actually running for alderman at a certain point. And then the other thing I did was I started doing some speaking. So I wasn't getting paid a lot. I did more free, 99% free, really more preparing than I was, you know, in terms of having a job or career, including volunteering in prisons. I mean, I did quite a bit, and it began to feed a hunger and a joy in me to be able to go and help others, you know, and then the speaking came with Toastmasters, and then eventually getting to blend both of them together was just a smoking deal for me.
How many times did you perform stand-up at a comedy club?
I think maybe it's been about, 4 or 5 times.
And that was just in the last few years, right?
Yeah, just in the last few years. And so it's something I'd consider going. If I could write rock solid material, I'd want to be out there a lot. You know, I've got a comedy coach, and he has a lot of confidence, more than I have in myself, who thinks I could be doing that, at least doing the emceeing and then working and building up. You know, but like everything else, you got to put effort and time and energy into it if you want to do well. And so it's not something that I could do, but who doesn't enjoy, making people laugh and making people feel good? I think I do that in the work that I do, which is not comedy, although I pretend to be funny here and there. But
Yeah.
but like anything else, finding something that you do well kind of lights you up a little bit,
Yeah.
and it was a cool challenge, to step out in a way that's different than what I do. Even though it's in front of people, it was different than trying to make people laugh and set up jokes. Was something that was a lot of fun. And I remember Chris Rock once said, he said, "You're not a real comedian until you really bomb."
Right.
And I could say I'm a real comedian because I bombed. There was a crowd one night and they were drinking like crazy, and the heckling and oh man.
That was that your first time in front of an audience?
No, it was about my third. So I crushed it the first time, which gave me the motivation to go forward. So at least I bombed on the third time.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you think of something that you wish you could do that you can't do or are actually too afraid to try?
Oh, I can think of thousands of things I wish I could do. Still walk or dance or do that kind of stuff. I miss dancing, I have to say, because I'm from the Caribbean, and our family weddings and stuff. And even though I would try my best in my context, there's some things like that, like walking barefoot on a beach, with the water, just coming between your toes in the sand. I mean, there's certain sensations and feelings. Dunking a basketball was an amazing feeling and experience. Pardon me?
You could dunk?
Yeah, I could dunk a basketball. And so, but you'd have to cup it because my hand wasn't big enough. I could dunk a volleyball way better than a basketball.
Yeah, okay. All right.
But
you remember what it was like to watch Michael Jordan hold a basketball, by the way?
Yeah, he looked like he was holding a volleyball. Right.
You would just do this and you just...
Yeah, he was amazing.
Big hands. Do you remember what your feet felt like?
Yeah, I do. And I remember what it was like to jump. I remember what all those things are like. I'm not as obsessed as I was in the beginning to have it and grieve and cry over it. But you do reflect and you do remember. And I don't think you ever lose that desire that if I could walk tomorrow, it would be a fun, cool thing. But you're not waiting for it or depending on it for your happiness. I mean, there's still a lot of great things that I get to enjoy and experience and do. And so my life feels very full and fun.
If a stand-up comedian makes a joke about somebody handicapped, or if somebody is, are you especially protective of somebody who is in a wheelchair or something?
That's a good question. I think generally not. Particularly with its comedy, everybody makes fun of everybody with everything.
Yeah.
So probably generally not. I would have to say the one area in terms of comedy for myself, I have a hard time writing jokes about disability or handicap stuff because I just have never really thought that way.
Right.
I mean, I remember in the beginning, I so did not want to be identified that way at all. I wouldn't even park in a handicap parking spot. I was so literally, in the beginning, I was very adamant to not be. No, in fact, even with speaking, my initial goal was to be so good with my words and to give a message that took people on an emotional journey of joy and thinking deeply that they didn't even notice that I had crutches. And I don't know if that was good or not. I mean, partly I think it was to get good at my craft. And then the other part was to kind of make up for the fact that I couldn't move around and have people not notice that. But it was something that I did strive for, but it was more striving for being really good at what I did, to be able to touch people in a way that they didn't notice. They would just see me afterwards and think, man, that guy gave a good talk.
Right.
Not the guy with the crutches gave the good talk, but that guy really inspired me or uplifted me. And so, but at this stage, I don't get offended about those things. I mean, nobody wants to be labeled as a certain thing when you feel like a more complete person.
Right.
But I also know that people have different experiences, and I might be the only person they know in that way. It's similar like being a minister. It's like I don't want to, every time I go out and if I they just want to talk about spirituality or religion, or I can talk about a whole bunch of other things. So being a minister as well as my physical situations are important parts of my life and who I am as a person, but it's not the only, they're not the only things. So if I were to be only spoken to as a minister, only about a disability, it probably would get a little tedious, but generally I don't.
Can you think of a moment where there was where a young person maybe came into Unity Phoenix or Kansas City, or you saw somebody on the street and you had a chance to do something for them?
Yeah, I mean, it comes up a lot in ministry.
It does.
I mean, yeah, in terms of counseling or just talking with people about what's going on in their life. Was just even talking about somebody recently about an employment situation or a huge life choice change, that's imminent for them, and just share with them some perspectives and some thoughts and things to not pressure themselves into. So I think those types of things do come quite frequently. I've been asked in the past, a lot for people who have been injured, for me to go to the hospital and visit them, and it's always an interesting situation, because I think what the parents and the individual wants is to know that they're going to be okay.
Right.
Yeah. And for me, I do share that, even though there are a variety of versions of what okay looks like. I mean, everybody wants the ideal that they'll return back to full health and walking and moving mobility. But, I always, say that, that you are going to be okay, that there is going to be more life and more possibilities for you. But I try and not overly define that for them in either direction, because I think that would be, setting up an unfair expectation or kind of labeling them. So you try and find a way to give a sense of hope and possibilities and know things will get better. And I absolutely believe they will, but not try and limit it or define it or set it too high or set it too low. Because you also don't want to, say, well, you won't be able to do this. You won't, it's like, right. That, yeah. So in either direction, it's fine. It's the art of trying to find hopefulness and possibilities and letting them know they have it in them to move through this and to get beyond it and have a fabulous life. And then let them figure it out themselves, and not try and figure it for them, because to me, then that's not, I'd say one of the cool things is that what my mom did especially good for me was that I was really devastated after the accident. And instead of her trying to tell me all the things, is that she created a loving environment that finally the spirit in me awakened and started becoming more driven and motivated and inspired. And I think sometimes it's really a matter of creating a positive, encouraging, hopeful, loving space, and then let the spirit in that person rise up for what they were meant to do, and not try and overly predict or tell them what it'll be like or should be like.
Give someone a safe home, unconditional love, the foundation for rock solid faith in themselves, and then they'll plant the seeds they want to plant.
Right. That's kind of one of the greatest gifts that we can give each other and ourselves, is to create that environment. And because we know and believe, just like a seed has the intelligence in it in knowing what to grow into, that we have that in ourselves as well. In fact, sometimes I think that some of the things that happen in our lives that seem to rock us really are ways to try and get us to go a little deeper, to listen to the voice, to the spirit, to the wisdom that was already always in us, that we may have gotten distracted from hearing.
It's a painful thing to contemplate, but it also is like kind of a profoundly hopeful thing to think. That moment is not something anybody would wish on anybody. And here you are, 30, 40 years later, are you 39 and a half, right?
Yes.
39 and a half. But here you are, years later, and the kind of encouragement and safe space that you're describing that your mom provided you, I can attest to the fact that that's the space you create for your friends in your home. And it's also the space that you create at Unity of Phoenix when you're there to speak. You are that. And there's no way of knowing whether you would still be that if you hadn't had, really a tragic, I don't know if it's a loaded word to you. Do you consider it a tragic day, that day?
It definitely was traumatic. I
Yeah.
mean, I always say going through hell is terrible, but going through hell and not learning anything, that's tragic.
That's
And so it was traumatic. Tragic would have been if I didn't learn anything or gain from it. And so
right.
to me, that's when we kind of turn things around, is that ultimately gaining some insight, some strength, some wisdom, or following the dots to lead, to something better. I would say my life turned out way differently than I expected and much better than I'd hoped for. Because really, I mean, the level of joy and fulfillment that I feel when I'm speaking and teaching, there is a oneness and a connection that I feel like I am doing what I was born and sent here to do. It's an extraordinary gift and feeling to have that experience. I feel so honored and blessed to be able to have that experience. My life isn't easy. Nobody's life is easy, but to have those moments of pure bliss, fulfillment, and to know that your life is on purpose, even when you're having a sucky day, this is still the work. I mean, like listening to you sing and hearing your concert and your words and the way you play music, and I've known you for years, just like, and I've admired you so much, is that's pretty amazing stuff. Everybody doesn't get to feel that level of connectedness with what they're born to do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's to share it in a way that it helps others is just to me, that's when the gift of who we are and where the world needs a blessing really intersect of being able to use our gifts to help people. So it's really quite cool.
Yeah, that's very beautiful. I don't want to take any more of your time, but it's worth mentioning how people can watch you do this job that you do so well. unityphx.org, I believe.
unityphx.org, yes. And so all the talks are on YouTube, and you can check them out. You can get through them to the website or just on YouTube, and you can hear years of fabulous talks.
It's one thing to speak well. It's another thing to have a big heart. It's another thing to have wisdom to share. And it's another thing to be kind behind the scenes. And you are all the whole package. It is a joy and a privilege to know you. And I appreciate you being a good sport about me specifically talking about that accident from so many years ago. Among all the ways that you are an inspiration and an exceptional human being, one of those ways is how you model a life well lived and work well done, even after such an experience. So thank you for sharing a bit of your story with me and with everybody watching and listening. I hope you have many more years of success and joy on the pulpit and off.
Thanks, Daniel. My pleasure, my honor, and I love and appreciate you very much.
Thanks, Richard.
Thanks, man.